Hey everyone, Leanne Pilkington here for the latest Courageous Conversation, and I'm really excited to share this one with all of you. I am with Brooke Flint from Flint Property. Hey Brooke, how are you?
Great, Leanne, and thank you for having me on. I really enjoy listening to your podcast, so it's an absolute pleasure to be a part of it today.
Thank you so much. Now, your business is a buyer's agency, right?
Sure. So I'm a buyer's advocate for the Melbournians or agent.
Yes. Yeah.
Also like to call myself a property advisor as well, because that's the way that I see it moving forward.
Yeah, totally. But that's not what we're here to talk about. What we're here to talk about is Head Start Homes. So can you just tell us a little bit about what Head Start Homes is all about?
So Head Start Homes was an idea that started with the CEO and founder, Stephen Woodlands, probably about 5 years ago now. So he's a gentleman that grew up in social housing himself. He saw his mother basically raise his children, raise the kids and put the kids through the best education, and then through doing that, not being able to buy her own property. And then he's a lawyer and he worked at the banks, and he started seeing that perhaps because he'd seen what a good mother and role model she is.
And she had a good job from memory, right?
She did. She was a nurse. And she was, she was also studying, social work at the time. So she had a good job. She was, in stable employment. She was a good mother. And he realised that the only barrier that she couldn't buy a house was because she couldn't save for a deposit. Right. And so, why should she be impeded by that? So when he got into banking, he started seeing that there were these loans that the banks have called the loans that mum and dad help the kids with, that they use their own equity essentially to help their children. So what about if we could start a charity that we could actually set up a trust fund for other people so they could buy a property with that equity. They don't actually get their hands on that equity, but it's held in a trust, basically.
And it just means that they don't have to save that massive deposit themselves. And that also means, from memory, that they don't have to worry about mortgage insurance, which is really super expensive, right?
Huge. I mean, this end of the market, we're basically talking under 400,000. So they're getting the stamp duty off, I agree. The mortgage insurance is huge anyway. The barrier is actually the deposit. So for even a $400,000 property, a 10% deposit might mean they pay mortgage insurance as well.
Yeah,
so how do you save that?
Yeah, it's almost impossible. And you've just gone through the experience with Charlene, right? The very first person to buy a property through this program. So tell us about Charlene's story and how that all unfolded.
So essentially how we find our clients is through these social housing, community housing organisations. So places like Baptist Care, they will send us a list of people that have been good tenants, okay? So there was a list of 3 people that were sent to the board, and I am on the board of Head Start Homes. And Charlene's story really got to everybody. She's 31 years old, mother of 3. She was homeless 3 years ago. She basically, she got into social housing 3 years ago, and that started changing her life. She got a job with the community housing provider, so she works there, looking after the tenants there, and she was just really good on paper. So what happens from there is there's a financial literacy program where we really educate the clients about saving, and she started saving her money. So part of this is that it is really about the person that's got to tick those boxes with the bank. They're not given anything. Like they have to actually save the money, be good tenants. And
they've earned the right through their behaviour to get this opportunity.
100%. So that started in January this year. Stephen and I drove up to Port Macquarie to meet her, and she was like a deer in the headlights. I mean, even the first time I spoke to her, she was like, she had to get off the phone. I really saw that there was such a block of self-worth.
Well, I would imagine, I mean, it's really hard for kids trying, I was having this conversation with my 20-year-old nephew a couple of weeks ago about, what you've got to do to actually get into the property market. And for a lot of kids, you just think, oh, it's too hard, I'm never going to be able to do that. So I would assume a 31-year-old single mother with 3 children would think that it would just not even occur to her that it'd be a possibility.
I agree. I think, I agree with the 21-year-old like your nephew as well, and I don't want to make any assumptions about who his parents are or anything like that. But, she came from a family where home ownership just doesn't happen, and that there's a survivor mentality there. And so beyond even the unaffordability for the average 21-year-old, there is just a huge, there's just that, this is never, wasn't even in her radar.
It's not part of her world. Nobody in the family probably owned a home.
Nobody owned a home in the family. So it just wasn't.
Wow.
So for that to happen, so she was so when maybe, we could imagine if somebody rang you up and said that you've won the lotto and you just wouldn't.
Well, I dream for those phone calls.
So do I, we wouldn't be having this we'd be off, on our holidays if we could have one right now. But look, we all sort of dream about that. But if we can imagine getting that phone call and meeting her, and she was just almost fearful then, because then she started to really engage with this idea that it was going to be possible and it could be taken away from her. So the first part of the journey was I've created this property coaching program. So it's about getting people into the headspace and the mindset that they are going to be able to be what I call buyer ready. So unbeknownst to the clients at the time, I'm getting them to do things like I would with my clients in Sydney. I want you to go through a list of these properties. We have a Google Doc sheet that we start. I do some briefing beforehand about what to look for. So they're looking at aspect and walls and they're starting to really create a dialogue around the houses, instead of just sort of that's a house with 4 walls, but what's the aspect? Could I pull down a wall here? What's the street like? It's basically that idea of creating words around what you're doing. That there's that, what's that saying about the Eskimos have 100 words for the word snow? Right. And this is part of education is getting somebody to that point, where that they start being confident. We noticed early on there was a bit of argy-bargy with some of the agents and her own self-belief with the way that she was being treated, when she went through the home. So we had to deal with some racism early on, which was astounding. And
that's horrifying, isn't it?
Yeah. So there are those conscious biases as well of some of the people like agents thinking, well, you can't afford a house.
Can't afford it. Yeah.
What are you doing? So we got through all of that, and then COVID hit.
Nice. COVID, I tell you.
Yeah, and so we had to be, as we all did, you were doing some great work around educating our community, but nobody really knew because it was unprecedented.
Yeah, it was.
We didn't hear that word again, do we?
Yeah, totally, no.
So we had to get through that. So that was, really, I really didn't think she thought it was going to happen. And from somebody coming from a trauma background and COVID, that really unsettled her a lot.
I bet, yeah.
So there was a lot of baking going on, a lot of chatting still. We found a property for her that, again, I saw something in her that was that disbelief again, where it was well under budget, but it didn't have in the backyard what she always really dreamt about, which was having a pool for the 3 kids.
Yeah, right.
So talked her out of that one, and then found something off market for her. And I had a lot of backlash from agents because I'd created a database that we weren't going to be able to find what we wanted in budget. But we got there, and then I sent you the video. But on the day, there were a lot of tears, and
so talk me through that that day. She's found the property, you've negotiated the price, it's finally hers.
That day was a career highlight, I say, in the sense of being able to give back to I feel a segment of the population that really needs it. So it's a lot of women, single mums, Indigenous women, women that have got kids that are disabled. So it was amazing to be able to use that experience. And on the day, so she still didn't believe it was going to happen. We had a dinner the night before with a few of the people from the board, and she kept thinking that this is not going to happen. And then when I handed her the keys, I mean, her body just like shook, as mine did as well. Like, this is mine. This is actually going to be my home. And so I could see her whole body go from this very tense, survivor woman to this relaxed state of like the biggest smile on her face. And it was just, I felt so grateful to be able to be a part of her journey.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So what was it that led you to wanting to be involved in a program like this?
So, look, my own story is that my parents were in social housing for about 6 months when I was born due to my dad's antics. And by the time my mum was the one that, wanted to buy the family home and do all that. So we bought a family home when I was about 6 or 7. And then they divorced at 14, when I was 14. He wasn't the greatest father, and I was happy about them divorcing, to be honest. And then my mum made a mistake in the sense of, we moved up the coast, she bought a house, and we hated the school that we went to. And Mum was very much about her kids and us and our education. We both went to selective schools back in Sydney, and she said, okay, we'll move back to Sydney. And when we did that, she couldn't sell that house. So we had to live, like my brother and I had to live in a 2-bedroom unit in Sydney while she sold that house. And then she bought like a small villa. So in my high school HSC and year 10, I had to share a bedroom with Mum. And then Mum gave us the bedroom in our HSC year. But it was just the shame of like having I'd had a family home and then having your friends come over and you're living in a 2-bedroom place. And I know it's not what Charlene went through, but I always remember thinking, and it's why I'm a buyer's agent today and why I want to help people today, is I do believe I could have helped Mum a lot more about buying a 3-bedroom house, and I think that her survivor mentality and her just trying to do the right thing by her kids led to that. So so I guess
a bit of lack of it does explain why you're a buyer's agent and a property advisor, as you like to call it, because she probably didn't have anybody helping her make those decisions that were right for her. And as you said with Charlene, she found something she thought she could that would be good for her, but you were smart enough to know that it didn't actually tick all of the boxes and there would be something better out there. So I completely understand why you've gone down that path. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that I'm a huge advocate for helping women that have been in situations of domestic violence experienced that myself as a child. So for me, being able to give back to that part of the community and help others, not only what I realised, Leanne, which was the real cherry on top in this process, was this wasn't just about housing. This was about a woman going from being a victim to being a woman that was empowered.
And that just changes the cycle for her children and for the other people in her community and in her family, because they have gone from nobody being able to afford a house, that's never going to happen, to all of a sudden, oh my God, did you see what Charlene's been able to do? And if it's possible for Charlene, then it's possible for them too, right?
Well, that's where it comes to the ripple effect. And interestingly, so how this all works is that, she's got 3 kids. So that's the 4 of them living in the home. And by the way, she sent me the happiest of little videos. She's painted the walls. What do you think about the colour, Brooke? She's put the paintings up, So she's just said, I couldn't be happier, right?
Right.
And then the people because she works in community housing, she got to make that phone call to the woman that got her house.
Oh, really? How good is that?
Yeah, and she loved that house. She loved that stability, and there's a lot of bias about people in social housing as well, and that actually so that was 4 people that we bought for, like her and the 3 kids, and there were 6 people. So there's a woman that lost her 5 children because she didn't have a home that are now rehomed as well. So you've got.
So she got her kids back because Charlene bought a house.
She got her kids back because Charlene bought a house. There's 10 children and women and boys that have seen their mothers instead of treated terribly. They've seen their mother be empowered and be a strong female role model. And I think that in itself, that potentially can shift society on a level that we're not even aware of yet.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree.
That boys see a woman being treated, that boys see a woman take charge, take control of their life, and not be a victim to to violence or anything else,
Yeah, it's such a great story. And I assume that once Charlene pays enough equity down, then the money that was used to help her will go to help another person.
100%. And that's the beauty of the business model. And that's where my, that's why I'm on the board as well, is a lot of my, guidance and advice is around, look, I'm not just here to, for the capital growth for Head Start Homes, because it's capital growth for our clients is going to be amazing as well.
Yeah.
However, it's part of the business model that when we can get that money back out and give that to another client, it keeps carrying on. So the compound impact, like we're projecting it helping, I think about up to 40 people in the next couple of years, but you can see that was 10 people we just helped, apart from all the friends, apart from all the friends and family that have been impacted by that as well. It's
amazing. So tell me about the Give One, Grow One initiative.
So the Give One, Grow One initiative is for anybody that's got a small business. And I got this idea of when I was doing KPI, key person of influence, and this guy called Paul Dunn. And it's this idea of giving for little things in your business. So rather than at the end of the day, and not that I'm knocking this in any way, but at the end of the day, some of the corporates will give out those big checks, and we see it all, but does it really touch us anywhere? Does it penetrate our hearts? Not really sure. This one is about doing little things each day and each week and putting that towards a charity or somebody else owning a home. So it might be if you've got a Google review. It might be if you've got, your 5 listing presentations that you needed to get this week. It might be that you reached target. It might be that you bought a property, and then that is given to Head Start Homes. You could either sponsor a person as well, but we put all of that money into the trust to actually help people buy property. So that's not used for any of the admin, and we're really clear about that. So people can help. And the other beautiful butterfly effect of all of this, Leanne, is not only does it help that person buy the home, but there's a raise of consciousness when we actually start thinking about other people and not just our own check at the end of the day. So in your own business, culturally, if people are finding that there is a culture of a bit of me, or, not as shared, these things actually shifts the level of consciousness, because we're all working towards a shared goal.
Towards something, And so approximately, I know it depends on the price of the property and all of that sort of stuff, but approximately how much money was needed for Charlene to actually buy?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So the house was $385,000. I don't mind disclosing that to you. And it was probably a $400,000 house, which was great. And so we put 20% towards that.
Okay.
So
round about just under $80,000.
Just under $80,000, but it could be less. Like we're starting an Adelaide initiative.
Great.
And so the houses there, I mean, you can buy houses there for, 250,000. So that's great. And the client I'm currently working with as well has saved up like $20,000 or something like that. So again, from being a part of that financial literacy program. So it's pretty exciting.
That is so good. It is such a fantastic initiative. I remember how moved I was when you and Stephen came into my office. It was probably 2 or 3 years ago now.
It was 2017.
So
do you know it was actually, unfortunately, it was almost to this date, because one of my friends died the next day.
Oh, heavens.
which I know is a bit of a, like, you know, so I hate to sort of be,
Yeah.
but that's how it's October the 2nd. And funnily enough, like I remember meeting you and that happening, went out for dinner,
Yeah,
but that happening the next night. So it's actually been
so
3 years since we spoke. Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. Well, I'm so excited that it is actually up and running, and you've got plans to scale it into other states.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to know more about it, or more about how they can help or get involved, how can they contact you?
So Head Start Homes is a great platform, which is our website, .org.au. There's all sorts of ways of giving. There's videos. We're just releasing the first like proper movie that we shot, which is a bit more artistic than the one I sent you, Leanne, about the journey of Charlene. So that should be across some socials, and go to Head Start Homes, and those videos will be on there as well. And yeah, thank you for your support as well, Leanne, and your leadership in the industry. It's I'm you know, throughout COVID and the rest, you've been such a great leader. So you know,
thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and congratulations again for everything that you're achieving. I will watch what happens next with great interest.
Thanks, Leanne.
Take care.
You too. Bye.